Welcome to Networking RX, a podcast devoted to helping business professionals like you enhance your networking skills in order to become more proficient giving and receiving quality business referrals and improving the overall quality of your life and the lives of those around you. The Networking RX podcast is a production of AmSpirit Business Connections, an organization whose mission is to empower business success through networking.
Welcome back for another episode. This is Frank Agan, founder and president of AmSpirit Business Connections. Thanks to those who are tuned in and who've been tuned in the past. Thank you for my subscribers, and thank you for all the referrals for people who stop in and listen. Some people stay, some people come back and forth, some people, whatever. It's all great. And I appreciate the comments, emails, and whatnot on the program. As many of you know, from time to time, I will have guests on, and today's a guest day. So I want to kind of jump right in. Michelle Lederman. Did I get that right, Michelle?
You got it right. Michelle Tillis Lederman.
Tillis Lederman. Thank you. She is one of Forbes' top 25 networking experts, and she's authored 4 books. Well, we're going to talk about some of it today, but she has a book that's internationally known, The 11 Laws of Likability, and I want to get her back on for that program. But we're going to talk about the Connector's Advantage today. And Michelle is a connection creator and CEO of Executive Essentials, which provides customized communication and leadership programs for Fortune 500 companies, not-for-profits, universities, and governmental clients. And she shared with me that one of her big clients is New York City, which in my mind is the biggest city in the United States. So that carries a lot of weight. And she was before that, she was a finance executive and a professor at NYU. She is a regular in the media, appearing on NBC, CBS, Fox, NPR, and the Wall Street Journal. She's been in the New York Times, CNBC, and many others. She is really best known for helping people work better together and advance their individual impact. So Michelle, thank you so much for joining us today.
So happy to be here.
Now let's jump in. In the Connector's Advantage, you start out by talking about not being lucky. And we were kind of joking before we hit record. It's like, not being lucky probably led to where you are now. If you could share that story, that would be great.
Absolutely. People often say like, oh, you got so lucky. You landed your first client was JP Morgan and oh, you got so lucky. No. It isn't luck. I always say it's connections. And it was back in 2001. I was working at Deloitte Consulting and I'm busy and I'm doing my job. And somebody's like, hey, you got to go to the conference room. And I was like, yeah, I can't right now. I'm on deadline. They're like, no, you got to go to the conference room. Wow. And it was a Monday morning. I went to the conference room and there's probably at least 50 to 75 other people in that room. And basically it's the holding pen for one by one, you getting told that you're being laid off. And I found out later that we were about the 4th round of layoffs. I was oblivious because, I had high marks and, at this point they were kind of just getting rid of anybody and everybody because they'd already kind of cut a bunch of rounds. And the truth was I wasn't really happy at the job. And I had at one point gone to the partner and said, hey, I'd love to do this client, this corporate social responsibility work. And the partner is the one who came back to me and said, hey, that job's been eliminated. And since you don't want to do client work anymore, so are you, basically.
Oh, geez.
And so it was a little shocking and you've never been laid off. It really impacts you and you feel like, what's wrong? Why me? And so I go back to the office Tuesday to clean up my desk and I called my friend that I went to business school with and I said, guess what? He's like, what? I'm like, I just got laid off. And he, without literally a beat, responds, come work here.
Wow.
And I was like, well, what would I do there? And he said, come to my office tomorrow. We'll talk about it. So now it's Wednesday and we chat about it. And he's like, well, you can do this and you can do that. And he's like, come back tomorrow and meet my boss. All right, now it's Thursday. I meet his boss. We're chatting. The conversation's going great. And in the middle of it, he says, okay, so can you start tomorrow?
Wow.
And if you could only see my face at that moment, it is one of the few times in my life I've been speechless. And my friend jumped in and said, why don't we give her till Monday?
Yeah, I was going to say, don't ruin my long weekend here.
So I was still on my 2 weeks notice from Deloitte and already
Okay.
started the bank. And, and that's what I mean. It wasn't like I made that friend or made that connection or even called him with the intent of getting a job. It is the fact that I built and maintained and sustained relationships that when I made that call, that was the response I got.
Right. And you'd obviously built that relationship over years.
Oh yeah. I mean, I graduated business school in 99. So this is a good 2 years after business school. And, this is what I mean when I say the connector's advantage. Whatever it is you're working on, whether it's getting that new job or planning a vacation, it could be anything. You're going to get that result faster, easier, and better. I mean, if you think about this story I'm saying, faster for sure. I mean, literally, it was not even a week before I had a job offer in hand. Easier, I wasn't even trying.
Yeah.
And better, well, I actually credit that job with helping me figure out what the heck I really wanted to do with my life and begin the transition out of finance into what I do now.
Yeah, that's a fascinating story. And we talked about before we hit record, I mean, chaos sometimes can be our friend, because it did send you on a path. But again, you weren't lucky. You had created this opportunity for a long time beforehand. I think that's a valuable lesson. I talk to so many people who are in transition, and they share a common story. Not everybody, but a lot share a common story that I've really gotten to know the person in the cubicle to the left and to the right of me, but I've never really done anything outside of the company or the firm.
And that's the key, is understanding that our network is very broad and that we're always networking and building relationships, whether you're on the playground picking up your kids from school, or you're volunteering at a soup kitchen, or walking dogs at a shelter, whatever it is that you're doing. I've met people at the grocery store.
Yeah.
I hired somebody who I met at the dog park. You just never know. And if you're willing to have those conversations and share of yourself and ask questions and be curious, you just don't know.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great point. I will tell people that, networking is a 24/7 thing, 365 days a year. And so often people think of networking as, okay, I've put on a suit, I'm headed off to work. Now I'm on. And we're really always on, and that's great.
I would like to tweak that just a speck, because people don't like the word networking. I don't like the word networking. It has the word work in it, and like, who wants to do that?
Yeah.
And when I talk about networking, I add the phrase relationship networking, because really, to me, networking is more about connecting. It's about making friends. And when you say it's a 365, 24/7, when you say connecting, that doesn't feel so bad. When you say you're always networking, people are like, oh, I don't like that. So if you're out there listening and you had a visceral reaction to Frank's statement, then just replace that word networking with connecting.
No, I mean, you're right. That's a great tweak to that, because it's when people think about relationships, and connecting, it does have a different connotation. Networking is, in most people's minds, akin to, the aluminum siding salesperson. I don't know if they have aluminum siding anymore, but you know what I mean? It's something salesy. And in my mind, I've made that transition. I just need to kind of adopt better language. The name of the book is The Connector's Advantage. The subtitle is 7 Mindsets to Grow Your Influence and Impact. And, I I'm looking at these seven, and as people who've listened to me in the past, I don't review a whole book. And just buy Michelle's book. Not that expensive, and it comes really fast because she's had it published and it's not on print on demand. But I look down these seven mindsets, and I'll just quickly read these off. 1, connectors are open and accepting. 2, connectors have clear vision. 3, connectors believe in abundance. 4, connectors trust. 5, connectors are social and curious. 6, connectors are conscientious. 7, connectors have a generous spirit. Now, when I was going through these, the one that really jumped out at me, and there's probably a couple others on this list that you can say people have not issue with, but struggle with. The one that really jumped out at me was connectors believe in abundance. And, I have a generous spirit. I see why that's on the list. The abundance one, I'm not saying it shouldn't be on the list, but if you could kind of describe that and how you see that and how you see that playing into us being better connectors, that would be great.
Absolutely. So let's first have people understand what we mean by abundance. And the opposite of abundance is scarcity. That scarce mindset of there's not enough to go around, it's you or me, all of that comparing ourselves or competing is about a scarce mindset. I share an example of when I started out in finance, my first job, there were no female partners. There was one female senior manager, and none of the women wanted to work for her because she was not going to be nice to women because there was only room for one woman, and it was going to be her. And that is a scarce mindset. That's the example. Gotcha. And scarce thinking is, it's me or them. Scarce thinking is, this is the way it is and this is the way it's going to be. So abundant thinking and an abundant mindset is not Pollyanna. It's not everything's wonderful, because that's not reality.
Right.
But it's being open to the possibility of it being different. It's the belief that there is enough. It's the shift in our mindset to away from envy, away from comparison, away from protectiveness, right? So, for example, you're a podcaster and you might be friends with lots of other podcasters, and you might say, hey, if you had any great guests on, would you introduce me? A scarce mindset would be, no, because if he's got the same guest, then my show's not special, and I got to protect my guest so that my show stands out.
Right.
But an abundant mindset would be like, sure, absolutely, I'm happy to connect you, because you have different people listening to your show than I have, and even if we had the same people listening to both of our shows, it's not going to be the exact same show, and I know that I'm a really great interviewer, and I'm going to get different things out of my guest than you're going to get out of yours, and I'm not comparing myself against you. So here's that introduction. That's an abundant mindset. That enables us to have the generous spirit that you referenced. That enables us to connect, because we are not being protective, and we're not being comparative, and we're not being competitive. I don't believe in competition. I love winning a good game of Mahjong, but for me, I don't have competitors in my field. I have strategic partners. I have lots of alliances. And I believe that there's enough work to go around, so I don't have to be fearful. And it's not to say that, when somebody lands a great client that I didn't land, that I don't have that moment of envy.
Sure.
That's natural. But instead of being resentful or like, how can I get that client? I congratulate them. And I'm like, how can, let me learn from you. How did you land that client?
Right. It reminds me of the saying, someone else's beauty doesn't diminish yours, sort of a thing.
That is a great way to think about it, because, it's difficult to shift our mindset because scarcity is real. Like, we experience scarcity. We have history with scarcity. Like, I grew up with scarce finances.
Yeah.
And so we feel it and we believe it. And so it is really a hard shift in our mindset. And so there's some practices that we can do. And one of them I've already said is to not compare ourselves against other people, to understand and recognize our own value and our own differentiating aspects of who we are. so that we don't have to worry about everyone else.
Right. Well,
But
some of the things you talk about in the book, I really kind of term them as like unlimited resources, right? I mean, me sharing a podcast guest with somebody else, again, it doesn't diminish what I have.
mm-hmm.
It, if anything else, it elevates me in the eyes of the prospective guest and my other podcast host. So it really kind of serves to, you know, money's scarce, right? I mean, money is a limited resource, I should say. But the things you talk about in the book, giving credit, making connections and things like that, there's really no limit to those sorts of things.
Yes. And those are great habits that help us embrace that mindset of abundance. You referenced giving credit. It doesn't cost us anything.
No.
And when we give credit, what I always say, when you shine the light on somebody else, it reflects back on you. So if you make that introduction for somebody, you add value in some way, it reflects back on you. Maybe you're referenced on that other show. Maybe you're back in the front of people's minds because they have that appreciation. And it is not a linear exchange. And it's not, hey, they did that, now I owe them. It
Right.
is, hey, I can give credit. I can say thank you. God, thank you is a wonderful thing. I can practice gratitude.
Right.
And, I know there's a lot out there. I know you've had some guests that talk about gratitude, and it's such an interesting and broad topic. But I want to make it really easy for people out there, because sometimes when people talk about the practice of gratitude, it sounds big and scary and overwhelming. And I'm lazy and I'm all about easy.
Right.
So I don't journal. I don't write, what I'm grateful for 5 minutes every day, because it just seems like a lot. I have a very simple habit, and I do it with my family because I have 2 boys, and one of them tends to be very negative, and, everything will be great, but I'll focus on the one thing that isn't. And so I, over dinner or at some point in the evening, I'll say, what was the best part of your day?
Yeah.
And that's it. At one point it was highs and lows, but they spent more time on lows. So it's not that you don't want to share the lows, because we do, that helps manage the burden of a low. But to make sure that you find something to feel good about each day. And I have a little sign in my son's room, and it said, today might not be a good day, but there's good in every day. And so that's another way you can form the question, what was the good in today?
That's good. That's good. Well, it's interesting. You talk in the book here about your house growing up and your perspective in looking at other houses. Just being grateful for what you've got. And that's such a powerful thing. It's so easy to get mired down in all the have-nots. And that's just a function of comparing ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Nobody ever knew that somebody could actually have a garage attached to their house until somebody actually did it. And then everyone's got to have one, right?
Well, it's funny, because I think for me, the moment that shocked me was, we'll drive around and I'll be like, oh, and I'll say something about this house or that house, and how lucky I feel that our house is on a flat lot, or that our garage is attached, or that our street is quiet, or whatever it might be, instead of focusing on the fact that we don't have a coat closet when you walk into the house, or the garage is really small, or, you can focus on all those things too.
Sure.
And my husband's like, why do you do that? He's like, why are you, constantly comparing, our house? And I don't, the way he made me feel when he said that was as if I was putting other people down, or it just felt awful. And I looked at him and I said, oh God, that's not what I'm trying to do. I said, you grew up in a Leave It to Beaver household,
Right.
You don't understand what it was like to grow up where, if there was furniture in the house, we got it off the street or at Goodwill. That we could only use one shower because the plumbing didn't work in the other one. He didn't understand how I grew up. And so I said, I'm not I'm not trying to put anybody down. What I'm always in awe of is that I have a house where all the showers work.
Right.
I never thought I would have what I have now. And so me looking at other houses is to remind myself of how fortunate I am and how far I've come and how grateful I am for all that I have. And it was a shock to my system when he interpreted it one way, and it was a shock to his system when I explained what I was doing. And it was a really big moment and a shift for us to realize how sometimes the way we speak can be interpreted. And sometimes we have to let people know that what we are doing, so it's not misinterpreted.
And awesome. That was a great conversation on believing in abundance. How can people help you? People listening, what would be, I don't want to say a good referral, but what are, obviously buy the book. Again, Michelle Tillis Lederman, The Connector's Advantage. But what other things could help you?
I just love that you asked that question. That is one of the questions of a connector, because we're always thinking about how can we add value to others. And I always say that you should ask that question, but you should always have an answer to it as well. Well, thank you for asking it. Right now, one of my goals is to get 100 reviews of this book on Amazon. So if you have a chance to buy the book or even go to the library and take out the book and read it, honest reviews, whatever you think, I want to hear it. Post it on Amazon, help me get to 100 reviews, because it helps with the search and the algorithm and all that good stuff. So I would love to have your review on Amazon. As for me, if you have an organization that you're a part of that hires speakers and you want to have an experience of learning how to create connected cultures or be a connected leader or connect better to your network or even to your message, that's what I do, and I would love to come out and talk to your group.
Awesome. Well, I think that begs the next question. I guess it'll be my final question. What's the best way to get a hold of you, Michelle?
The best place to start is actually my website, and that's, okay. I'll spell it for everybody. It's Michelle, Michelle, Tillis, Tillis, Lederman, Lederman.com. And from there, you can get to my YouTube channel, and I got this video series called Success Shorties. You can get to my blog. There's probably 300 blog posts, so you can search the archives for whatever it is that you are working on in your career or management leadership. You can link into me. You can find me on Facebook, but not the personal page of the professional one. My hair in the 80s was very big. You can find me on Twitter. You can find me on Instagram. Those are all that's the hub to find me. And I actually have some giveaways. So if you go to my website, you can enter your email address or go to the gift pack page, which is really the website /gift pack. And I give lots of different goodies away, including a free chapter from a couple of the different books and things like that, so that I can walk my walk and add value.
Oh, awesome. Michelle Tillis Lederman. That's MichelleTillisLederman.com. I will put that in the show notes, so we don't need to spell that out again. I really appreciate your time today. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AMSPIRIT.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connection. All rights reserved.